Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we're going to do some more to the Frog. It's time to get it up on its wheels. We're on to step 17, fitting the pinion. There's not many parts for this step. All we need is a pinion. There's 3 to choose from. You need to pick the one that matches the spur gear that was fitted when the gearbox was built. We also need a 3x3 grub screw, the motor plate, the fibre spacer type widget, and of course we need the motor. Now for now we're going to build it with the stock motor, but I'm fairly sure we'll end up swapping it for something a bit more sporty. On the end of the motor there's a rubber tube. It's just there to protect the shaft, so we can just pull it straight off. Now so we don't lose it, we'll pop the grub screw loosely into the pinion, just a turn or so for the time being. On the face of the motor we need to fit the fibre plate. Now I'm never quite sure why Tamiya used them, but they include them in almost all their kits, so they have to be there for a reason. It could be for heat, or perhaps grip when you have an adjustable motor mount. Either way, it's not difficult to fit. We just line it up with the holes and press it over the bearing. Usually fitting a pinion is quite straightforward. We just pop it on the shaft and nip up the grub screw. On the Frog though, when the cover goes on the gearbox, in the next step we won't be able to check on its position. Tamiya have thought of that though, as they tell us that the outside of the pinion to the face of the motor should be 16.5mm. Now vernier is the easiest way to do it. A ruler with a flush end would be a close second, or failing that, mark up and trim a bit of cardboard. Set the position, nip up the grub, and that's the motor ready to fit. Step 18, fitting the motor. For this one we'll need the motor of course, 2 large 4x12 self-tappers, 2 M3x30s, and for the plastic there's a C12 gearbox cover and A1, one of the battery end stops. We'll do the A1 first, as it just lines up over 2 posts on the chassis and gets attached with the self-tappers. Quite simple, but it does have a neat advantage if you're going to run a LiPo that isn't quite the same size as a 6-cell 9mm. You can adjust its position a couple of millimeters by using some washers for extra clearance. Fitting the motor is almost as easy. We just offer up the cover with the 2 screws and thread them into the motor. It can be a bit of a faff getting the screws lined up with the motor, but usually if you can get one of them a turn or so, you can then pivot the motor and the other one will just drop in. When the motor's in, you should be able to spin it fairly freely through the gearbox by turning the axle. If it's completely bound up, the chances are the pinion isn't quite in the right position on the shaft. Step 19, the steering servo. This step also covers fitting the receiver and ESC, but I'm going to wait until everything else is in the chassis. We'll be using a more modern, far smaller receiver than the 27 MHz Tamiya one, so we'll probably end up mounting them a little bit differently. Anyway, for step 19 we need 2 more of the 4x12 self-tappers, 2 washer-head 3x10 self-tappers, and another A1 battery end stop. We'll start with the end stop again, which is exactly the same as the other one. We just use the 2 large self-tappers to attach it, and of course we can always pop some washers under it if we need a bit more space. For the servo we just need to drop it in at the front of the chassis and fit a washer head screw in opposite corners. The servo sits over to one side, which might seem a bit strange, but if you look at the original kit it used 2 servos next to each other. The second one was to run the mechanical speed control. One of the mods that we're going to end up doing is to move the servo to the centre of the chassis and tweak the linkages for a bit more even steering. Step 20, linkages. This one's almost a non-step, there's so little to do. All we need are the 2 steering linkages and 2 of the white plastic rod ends. All we need to do is thread the linkages onto the rod ends and set them so one is 46.5mm from the base of the rod end to the Z-bend and the other one 69mm. They'll probably need a bit more adjusting once fitted, but they should be close enough for now. Step 21, the Servo Saver. Now before we get to the main bit of this step, we're going to need to figure out which of the 3 screw sizes we need for the servo. We have a choice of an M3, a 3mm self-tapper and a 2.6mm self-tapper. Generally, if you're using a plastic geared servo, you're going to want one of the self-tappers. Try the small screw first, and if it just falls straight through the hole, you're going to want the bigger one. We've got a metal gear servo though, so 9 times out of 10 we're going to need the M3. There's a few servos that use M2.5 screws, but they're pretty rare. In total, we're going to need 3 of the M3x10s for this step. There's also the Servo Saver parts, S1, 3 and 6, plus the Boss, S4 or S7, depending on whether your servo has a Futaba or ACOM spline. Most of the cheap servos around these days all use Futaba splines, so unless you have a high-tech, you're going to be covered. The last bits we need is an aluminium tube that goes across the chassis and the 2 steering linkages from the last step. Before we can fit the Servo Saver, we need to make sure the servo's in its centre position. You can of course connect the servo up to your radio and power it up, making sure all the trims are set to centre and the endpoints are all 100%. Or if you have a servo tester, just centre it and plug it in. Now we can press the Servo Saver Boss onto the splines with the nub towards the rear of the chassis. Now there's a good chance it won't quite perfectly sit straight, but the idea is to try and find the position that's the closest. When setting up the transmitter, you can always nudge the steering trim just a little bit, or use the sub-trim if you have it. Next, the spring S6 goes on. Now if you have trouble getting it over the nub, you can use a screwdriver to open it up just a little bit so it drops in. The arm needs the 2 linkages threading through the outside corner holes. They go up from the underside. Just make sure you get the long and short one the right way round. Just like the Boss, it has a nub that locks into the spring, so all we do is offer it up and press it in. We follow the arm with the S1 washer and screw it in with one of the screws so it's fairly tight. The last bit for the steering is we pop the rod ends onto the ball ends. They should squeeze on without too much force, the plastic is fairly soft. And there we go, working steering. Considering the off-centre servo, it looks to be working really quite well. There's going to be a bit of bump steer, but it's going to be good enough. Finally, for step 1, we need to fit the aluminium tube. It just sits across the chassis in front of the one we fitted earlier in the build. We offer it up and thread in an M3 screw in each side. Nip them up, and that's step 21 done. Step 22, the front wheels. For this one, we need the front tyres, which are basically slightly overweight aircraft tyres on the front. For the use this buggy's going to get, I reckon they're going to just about last forever. For the Beadlock wheels, we'll use 2 sets of F1, 2 and 3s. And to hold the assembly together, we need 10 M2x8s and 10 M2 plain nuts. Now, these aren't your modern, easy to assemble beadlocks. There's a certain amount of fight in them. The idea is we want the centre of the wheel fully inside the tyre. You can push the wheel in, then spin it around, pulling the tyre over. It requires quite a bit of pulling and pushing, but it will go. Next we offer up the F1 and F2 on each side, being careful to line up all the screw holes. Now we just use the screws and nuts to pull all the parts together. The nuts have a hex-shaped hole to sit in, so it's fairly straightforward. The main thing is that when tightening the screws, we want to do them up a little bit at a time and try and bring it all together nice and straight. If you tighten them up one at a time, there's a good chance you'll build in a bit of a wobble. Rinse and repeat, and that's the front wheels done. Step 23, the rear wheels, the wheels from hell. We need a similar set of bits for this one, 10 M2x10s, 10 M2 plain nuts, the tyres, and 2 pairs of R1, 2 and 3s. In theory, these go together just the same as the front set, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't get the wheels inside the tyre. The bead is quite a long way inside the outside of the tyre wall, so it's really awkward to get at. I ended up pushing the wheel through straight, working the bead over from the inside. It was still rather tricky, but it did work. You can see there's quite a stretch there as we pull the bead over the wheel. I'm thinking I really don't want to have to do that again, so after the buggy's first run for some video, I'm going to change the wheels and tyres for something that's a little bit easier to change. Apart from that, the rest of the assembly is the same as the front. We offer up the R1 and R2s, making sure to line up all the holes and fit the screws and nuts. Build up a pair of them, and that's the rear wheels done. Step 24, fitting the front wheels. Now this is a nice quick step. We just need 2 M4 nylock nuts and 4 bearings. As usual, we're using proper ball races rather than the included bushings. To fit the wheels, all we do is pop a bearing in each side of the wheel, slide it onto the shaft, and because we're using bearings we don't need to worry about using any grease. Then we just thread on a nut and tighten it up. Same goes for the other side, and that's the front wheels fitted. Step 24, and you probably guessed it, we're fitting the rear wheels. There's ever so slightly more to this one. We need 2 M4 nylock nuts, 2 drive pins, and if we were fitting a flagpole, we'd also need 2 washer head screws. Now the flagpole's quite neat. It's got a Z-bend right at the bottom that locks into one of the battery end stops. Then the screws are there just to stop it falling out. However, I reckon it'll be forever getting bent every time the buggy rolls over, so I'm just going to leave it off. To fit the wheels, rather than 12mm hexes we're used to these days, we have a pair of C11 Drive Flanges. All we do is pull the body clip from the axle and swap it for a drive pin, slide the drive flange over the top, then offer up a wheel followed by a nut. Nice and simple. Repeat with the other side, and that's the Frog up on its wheels. But before we have a good look, I think we're going to do step 26, as that's really the last step for the chassis. Step 26, the skid plate. For this one we need a 3x12 self-tapper, 2 3x10 self-tappers, the skid plate itself, and a B3 battery clip. Now there's a few slightly iffy bits with the design of the old Frog, but they're all usually good enough. The battery clip though is really rather naff. With the door closed, it just presses in through the gearbox sides to keep it shut. The clip is easy to lose, and it's not that uncommon to break it. And of course, being Tamiya, you'll probably have to order a whole B parts tree for a spare. Now you could 3D print one, but that's going to be even more brittle than the stock part. Having said that, with a modern 5000 mAh LiPo, it's going to go for ages on one pack, so maybe it's not quite so bad. The skid plate then just drops onto the underside of the chassis, and we screw in the long screw at the front. Then on the sides we use the shorter screws. It really does finish tying together the front of the chassis, and I think it looks rather cool too. It adds a certain something that modern buggies just don't have. And that's the chassis rolling. If we go to a nice slightly wider shot, we can see it in all its glory. And what a chassis it is! We've got the usual Tamiya-ness. The front feels a bit stiff and very bouncy due to the lack of damping, but it is fully independent. The rear is a bit more plush with the oil dampers, but you still couldn't really mistake it for anything else other than a Tamiya. The steering, of course, has Tamiya's wobble. Lots of little bits of play really do add up. All that said, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Trying to tame the old school handling can be just as entertaining as blasting around with a modern high precision RC. So that's going to be it for this week then. Next time on the Frog we'll deal with the body and the rest of the electronics. There's still plenty to be getting on with. As always then, thanks for watching, like if you liked, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a message if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!